more cost effective. And actually, this particular model, they just cut off the. Looks like they just cut off the. There wasn't actually plugged into a rain barrel or anything. It's just collecting water as it rains. So it's another rainwater harvesting method that can be used.
Great.
And accessibility was one of the needs we observed, and wide lanes between the beds, seating on the median beds, multi-tiered gardens, standing waist level with seats, and then ground level beds.
And the picture here actually shows some seats that were made out of pallets. So there's definitely ways that you can do seats cheap and effective, and those could actually be moved around as opposed to we also have some designs where they attach to the beds and are not portable.
They also look nice.
Yeah. Okay, so multi-tiered beds. We have, for accessibility, we have a high bed that could be for use to stand and garden. Here's one, a medium bed. It's about 2 feet with a work seat, and then standard low beds. And then this is kind of a rain barrel design, so the rain barrels can be placed up on the beds to feed your water.
And then interest and participation. An information station will be really nice on site and or online. A pharmacy garden schedule lets you know when the pharmacy is open and when people are going to be there, what events are going to be going on. In the information department, you could put recipes, articles, let people know what's in the beds, newsletters, educational resources, events at the garden and within the community. Help increase a little bit of participation and interest into the.
So in our break area, we wanted to make sure there was enough seating for rest time, break time. Maybe put a water cooler, even just an orange cooler. Make sure people are well hydrated and can take a break. And also making sure that there's somewhere for people to go to the bathroom, because that's going to be a big concern if people can show up and they have to walk a mile to get to a bathroom.
They're not coming back.
They're not coming back. So then we have a kid area. Make sure that if you bring in children, they're going to be entertained and not bored. So maybe a natural playground area with simple equipment, games, scavenger hunts, find different plants, and then experimental garden beds. And their beds that they've been using were in shaded areas. So if you really want kids to get excited about it, something should grow in those beds. So maybe looking at full shade plants in that area.
And this just elaborates on the natural play areas. Natural play areas create a space that permits young children to connect and fun and learning into their natural environments. Natural play areas can easily be created by using upcycled, recycled, and natural materials. And then there's links to different types of natural play areas that are available that some other community gardens are doing. And
so I guess another way to attract people would be skill and knowledge workshops, rain barrel workshops, irrigation workshops, composting, worm bins, or topical lectures and presentations, food preparation, pollination, water catchment, soil, companion plantings. Just way to educate your clientele or your help.
And people usually are interested in something if they're getting something out of it. So if they're gaining knowledge, that they're getting something out of it. So that's going to increase interest and participation into the program. And then increasing yield, again, an herb spiral is a great way to do that because it gives the multi-level for accessibility. And the herb spiral design naturally creates a variety of microclimates, which allows for diverse growing in small space. And the elevated center also creates access for planting and harvesting to individuals that may have physical limitations. And then there's some links down there at the bottom that you can further research.
Pollinator gardens. Pollinators support biodiversity and help sustain our ecosystems. There's increasing evidence that many pollinators are in decline. However, there are some simple things you can do at home to encourage pollinator diversity and abundance. There's some more links here that go into greater detail about that.
And trellis gardens allow you to grow more food in a smaller footprint, and it lets you also grow plants and things that can kind of take over other plants. Beans, peas, cucumbers, squash, melons, tomatoes. So it increases the yield.
This particular picture here shows one that's in an arch, so it really maximizes the area you could grow on and kind of add some something a little different to your garden, a little more interest.
Aesthetic wise, and then it also has a lot of other purposes too.
Companion plants. Companion planting is planting of different crops in close proximity to increase biodiversity and yield while also providing natural pest control, pollination, and habitat. There's some links here that have that get into different types of plants that work well together, and just more information on successful ways people have done that.
And then increasing yield at Three Sister Garden is an example of companion planting, which includes corn, beans, and squash. The stalk of corn acts as a trellis for the beans, while the squash provide ground cover. This method produces a high yield in a small area and reduces weeding and disease. And then down there you'll find at the bottom there's links to different ways and different successes to the Three Sisters. And
fall and winter crops, extending the growing season, keeping the beds going, rotation of crops. Our first frost in this area occurs around October 15th. Serious winter temperatures, daytime staying below freezing and nights below 10 degrees Fahrenheit don't start until January. If you're in a different area, you just have to look up and adjust accordingly. So experiment and provide and observe to find the breed or varieties that work for you. Some examples are broccoli, kale, cauliflower, and this link actually is for Southern Exposure growing in Charlottesville, and it has a ton of information on when to plant, what crops to plant, and what works well in this area.
Great.
This is our kind of our final design on this, working to the needs of the garden. We put a worm bin and seating area and kind of the playground area up top. This is the kids' garden beds here. And then a mixture of medium, low, and high beds with the water rain barrel system. It's hard to see on this slide, but pollinator plantings kind of around the edges. More rain barrel trellis at the bottom. Move the compost out here so it's central and at the bottom of the property, so you're not pushing all your compost uphill. And I think that's.
then this was for the museum site, the site that's kind of up on the hill. We thought about, they're still going to need a lot of accessibility to that property for events and things that they are already obligated to hold on to that property. But some things they could do, put some local varieties of trees and bushes to help with erosion, and they could do some companion planting that would give them a high yield in a small space. And some example of that would be like apple, fig, grape, blackberries, blueberry, northern, raspberries. Those type of plants and bushes would do well up there in that space and still allow for some yield, some aesthetic change, erosion control, but still provide open space for what they have contracted with the museum.
Compost, currently it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and not readily accessible, so consider moving the compost bin to a central location at the low end of the site. Water tank location is not ideal, so consider either moving to the top of higher ground or purchasing a pump. Collect and store as much rainwater as possible. Use irrigation to save water and labor. Site access, consider a wider gate so the trucks can pull into the site and you're not running mulch and dirt or whatever you're bringing in and out of the site constantly.
And then harvesting the water runoff, build beds on the contour. Building the garden beds on the contour will allow the plants to catch and utilize as much rainwater as possible. By harvesting the water for use in our garden beds, we conserve water, prevent erosion, and save labor. Collect beds in the water. And consider building your beds to allow water access by laying center blocks flat on the ground with the open into the outside. Water can easily be stored in your garden beds, and that way, because right now they're flipped up where the openings are on the top, so you could just flip them to the side and utilize what you already have for more productive growing space.
So the site contour, your low areas are going to be kind of here and here, and so this area is kind of on a ridge almost, and then this area, and so it all slopes this way, but it's also sloping kind of to the sides. So ideally you'd want your beds kind of built on contour so that when the rainwater comes off, it's going to collect as much of it as possible and utilize it to the benefit of the garden. And so then this one shows the slope. I added the rain barrels in. If possible, if you were doing it from scratch, you'd put that rain or that water container up at the top of the property, so you can feed it downhill and utilize gravity to your advantage.
And then Farmacy Garden sun exposure ranges from areas of full sun to areas of full shade. Consider which plants should be planted in which bed based on projected sun exposure. And then there's some examples of full sun plants, partial, and full shade plants. And you're just going to have to do a lot of observing and see which plants would do best in.
Sun energy is coming across the back side of the garden towards the parking lot. Rises here, sets here. In this particular design or step, I put the compost down here at the bottom of the bin, put some worm bins up here, actually installed some lower beds here to kind of catch the remaining before it runs off site. Here the water tank is low because that's where it is, so that's using maybe a pump to help you distribute, but using really the rain barrel to catch as much as possible and the contour to utilize as much water as possible. And so this is our final kind of comprehensive design, the information station, the kids playground, seating, and then trellises maybe in the bottom or here, pollinator plants on the outside edges, and drip irrigation kind of coming off your rain barrels.
So overall, we feel like that this could be it could produce a lot higher yield, a lot more interest, a lot more participation, and there's some pretty easy ideas and easy changes that can be done for it. But overall, they have a great thing going. Could be really, and it could be a lot better with the interventions and changes.
The end.